Okay, so all my pieces are turned down to the round, and they're to basically the rough heights that I need for each piece. Now I'm going to stick them on my lathe in the chuck. I'm going to chuck this tenon there on the end in that chuck and start actually turning my pieces. The shapes that I'm turning are the ones that I redesigned from the chess set design series videos that I did. So if you want to go look at how to do that, go back and watch some of those videos. The tools that I'm using for this project are an antique lathe that my dad actually found at a garage sale or somewhere, and I refurbished it and I built a stand for it. So I've had to jig with that a little bit to get it set up the way I want, but I think it'll work fine. It's worked so far for the pieces that I've done. The turning tools that I'm using are a cheap Chinese set of tools that I bought from Harbor Freight, and I have used these for years. I like nicer tools, don't get me wrong guys. Like, if you're going to do production turning, get a good set of tools, because you're going to like not having to sharpen them all the time, and you're going to like how they feel in your hand, you're going to like their weight. It's worth it to buy nice tools. But if you just want to get started and you want to learn how to do something before you spend a lot of money in it, then you can totally go and buy a set of tools like this. The problem with cheaper tools is generally that the handles are short and they're light. They're not very heavy. You want a heavy handle tool because it helps offset the pull on the blade. You know, if you have a long handle, you have better leverage. If you have a heavy handle, you have better leverage. So that's the main problem with cheap tools, is it's not so much the blade as it is the handle. The blades of the tools, the metal, that can sometimes be an issue. Most of this steel is either tempered, hardened, or just high-speed steel of some kind, but it's at least tempered. And I have been able to get good edges on these just fine. You do have to touch them up, you know, more often than you would an expensive tool, but I mean, you're just going to have to see like how I turn with these tools, and you can be the judge. One thing that I have noticed is that a lot of people who complain about cheap tools, the tool isn't the issue. What's the issue is they're putting the wrong bevel like grinding the wrong bevel on their tool. Sharp, really pointed bevels, that's for softer woods, guys. If you're using really sharp pointed bevels on hardwoods, yeah, it's going to give you problems. You know, you're going to chip your tools, you're going to do that kind of stuff. You need shorter bevels on harder woods, and you can use longer bevels on softer woods. That's a real basic concept for grinding your tools for turning. So these cheap tools, they're going to work fine. So be safe, let's get to it. So here's my blank. Goes in the chuck. This is going to need to be turned down to just over 2 inches in diameter, because that's the width on my pawn base. You can see with the 1/4 inch squares that it's 2 inches, but just so you see there. So we want to go to just over that, because that's the widest portion of the pawn. Then what I'll probably do is turn around this 1/4 inch bead. I'm going to turn down to a 1/2 inch dimension there. And then the head I'm actually going to enlarge and make it basically a full inch by inch. So let's turn it down and then we'll mark it. The main reason I have it in the chuck is so that whenever it comes time to sand or part off the end, I can finish sanding and everything without my tailstock in the way. Alright, let's get it down to 2 inches. Now, you can see I'm turning kind of a taper down this way. The reason I'm doing that, so that I can come in with my calipers and find where 2 is, 2 1/4. 2 1/4 is right about there. That's going to be the width that I take back. bottom of my piece. This is a small parting tool. Just defining the bottom of the piece there. So, you're at just over 2 1/4, which is fine. The base is going to be 2 inches on the pawn, so I am in the safe zone. Let's lay out our pawn. So here's the design, and if my base is there, and the head and the top puts there, and the collar here, and then see the bead ends there, new bead is there, and then kind of shallow right there. Large bead, small bead, cut back, slope or taper, neck collar bead, and then the head. Okay, now, right here, right below the collar, the taper is at its narrowest point. This is the point that I want to define right now. So that goes all the way down to a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to set my caliper at 0.5. I'll go a little bit more than 0.5. So we'll go 0.6. Just for kicks. And we do that because we want to be able to do some finish cuts. This is just taking it down to the dimension, rough dimensions. Then we need finishing cuts at the end. Half an inch. Where are we going down to? Alright, we're going to stop there for a second. I'm going to take some of this off. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do this. That way I know where the top of my head is. And the head is going to be 1 inch by 1 inch. Alright, so that was just to get some of that out of my way so I can do this. The bead is roughly about the same size as the widest part of the head, but I still don't want to, I don't want to go all the way down yet. I'm just kind of getting them down to a rough shape. This taper can come way down, but to do that I need to find out where my second bead is, because the taper starts there and then goes down. I know from my drawing that the second bead is about 1/4 inch below the first large bead. So the second bead is 1/4 inch narrower. I'm going to go about 3/8 inch in, because I know this is already larger than I needed. It's 2 1/4, and our finished depth is 2. This will come with it. Alright. So all that middle can come out. Alright. Now this gap's a little too big now, so I'm switching to the smaller one. Alright. Now the cutback is going to happen in here somewhere. And I know it's under 1/4 inch. So I'm going to start at this line because that's the top of my bead. I'm going to go ahead and say here.
here, you do a cutback, you start high, you turn your blade so that it's going to ride along this side of the bevel, and you raise your handle of your tool and slowly bring your tool in. And it cuts back. Now you get this stuff that hangs on sometimes. So that's okay because this is going to be a bead, so I'll do the same thing here. Jump in here, find my angle, meet down at the bottom of that, and that's getting pretty close to where I want it. I'm going to do it again. Alright, there's my cutback. Now, this is also a bevel. Well, not a bevel, it's a bead. I'm going to roll over the edges of that bead with my small gouge. So here in the middle. This actually needs to be less than the width of that. And again, I'm trying to get down to half an inch. So I've got plenty of time. I'm getting closer there. Let's take a look. Alright, so we wanted to go to 0.6. That's still wide. That's alright. Better wide than too narrow. So I'm starting on the bevel, meaning I'm not touching the tip of the blade. And as I rotate into the piece, the bevel turns onto the tip. And if you want to rotate out, pull your handle down, pull the tool up, and you roll out of the cut. And here I'm actually going all the way to the flat of the bead. By turning my chisel or my gouge up on its edge and using it almost like a chisel, almost like a skew chisel, to scrape along and shear off my cut. So I think we're getting pretty close now. Let me just check it again. Let's see. So that is 0.64. We're getting there. I'll take a few more passes at it. Alright. That should have gotten us right to our finish depth. Yeah. So we're just at over half an inch. And I'm fine with that. I can hone that down a little bit more if I want to, or I can leave it be. We shall see. Okay, so now the sphere and the head. What are we at? We need to be at a full inch on the collar. And where are we at right now? You're at 1.39, so need to come down. Actually, all this has to come down even more. So let's take it down to 1 inch. So, just in case you don't think these cheap Chinese tools are that good, that is a nice clean cut right down the face of the end grain. And I mean, it sheared off. You saw its little perfectly clean thin shavings. I mean, it's really all about how you sharpen your tools, guys. Yes, you can have crappy steel, but dang, if you sharpen crappy steel, it'll still be sharp. Alright. Where are we at? We are 1 1/4. Going down to 1 1/8. Where exactly do I need my width to be on that? Okay, so I've got a little bit too much on the top section. I can take that off, roughly here. That'll be good. Actually, I'm going to reset my tool rest a little bit. You always want to be as close as you can to your work. In a reasonable way, anyway. Because the closer you are, the more support you get from your tool rest. So, give myself checklists whenever I'm doing things like this, like with a tool like the skew chisel. You know, telling yourself before you start, okay, start high, start on the angle of the plane you want to cut on, and then lift the handle. Like, just going through that checklist every time you do it, actually saying it verbally out loud, will help you immensely. It's looking pretty sweet. So we're good. We're at, I mean, barely over 1 inch here. A little fat on the head. Take that down. So looking at my drawing and looking at my measurements on these beads, I need to be at 2 there. I'm still wide here. I need to be at roughly 1.5 there. And I'm almost there, but still pretty wide. So we're going to take this end down a little bit. Sanding's pretty straightforward. Alright, let's take a look at it. So I'm going to go ahead and part off the top, sand the end, part off the bottom. And for this, I'm going to use one of my special smaller parting tools. This is something an older gentleman gave to me. He made it out of a kitchen knife, ground down and perfectly flat on the bottom, and you can part really thin parting lines with this. The other parting tool that I have is, about 1/4 of an inch thick, where this is just a little bit over 1/16 of an inch thick. So if you want to part something really small off, make a small parting line, not waste a ton of wood, this is the tool to do it with. Now, you'll see as I part this off, you'll see how bad the slop is in this old lathe. That's why I left the dead center on for most of the turning. Crap, I almost made a boo-boo. Beep, 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 beep. Here we go.